What is going on, everybody? Welcome back in the TTP Sports. And, yeah, reaction to after that dreadful press conference that we had in the afternoon with Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni. First of all, those guys didn't even show up on time to the press conference because they had a quote-unquote meeting before the press conference. Honestly, it kind of resembles how late I am to start this stream just because I was doing some other stuff before then and I lost track of time. I was editing stuff for Mr. Hunter Brody before he went on the radio, so I was getting that stuff done. So I do apologize for the people that were waiting for this stream to start, but better late than never. At least I had a good enough excuse to be late to the stream, unlike a Mr. Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni, because honestly, it's hard to believe anything that those two say. It's hard to believe anything that Howie Roseman says because he can just throw something out there to the media to make it just seem like, because basically during this entire press conference, you see the entire Vic Fangio thing with the Miami Dolphins, him being let go of his job, and basically a lot of the people saying that he would be the top candidate for the Eagles defensive coordinator hire. And I'm like, of course, that would be the fact. Of course, something like that would, break during the Eagles press conference, basically to divert, I guess, a little bit of the attention away from the reaction of the press conference and more allude the people's thought process to Vic Fangio possibly being the new Eagles defensive coordinator. And I'll definitely share my thoughts on that in a little bit because honestly, that kind of pisses me off just a little bit, even though there's some things that do kind of make sense about it, but still I'm not the biggest fan of the entire idea. I'd rather go in a different approach with a whole, brand new defensive scheme with the entire thing. So that's where I am on that standpoint until, I bring it up a little bit more later. But just thinking about it face value, just pure reaction from that press conference, it was crap. It was bullshit. I didn't believe any of it. Howie Roseman, Nick Sirianni, both talking out of their asses and then, trying to, shed light on everything on why they took so long to even have this press conference because the day after they lost to Tampa Bay, there was a bunch of sadness and they gave the players a day off. And then they had the exit interviews, which lasted a couple of days, combined with the snowstorm that happened over the weekend. So that's why they were having this, thing entirely so late. It's like, stop. Stop with the excuses. Stop trying to find a different answer. Stop trying to make us believe certain crap. Just get on with the goddamn thing because it's going to be crap anyway. That's basically what it's going to be. It's going to be crap. It's going to be you spewing some type of stuff on fake belief, on something like that, on, different things on how to fix the offense, on the defense, on, this, it's my fault, it's this guy's fault, and anything like that. It's gonna be like that. It's basically gonna be like that. And that's honestly basically what it was because there really wasn't much. Howie Roseman taking some blame on certain things, putting himself in the front office in the position of blame, Nick Sirianni taking some blame. But there were definitely some things that did stand out to me during this press conference, but did make me laugh, which was, I believe it was Zach Berman or Tim McManus. I forget who specifically asked this question, but it was basically in regards to because Nick Sirianni was talking about the offense, same thing with Howie Roseman in terms of, coordinators and all that stuff and how they're going to try to bring in an offensive coordinator, to bring in new ideas, to fix the scheme up and then adapt things from Nick Sirianni's scheme to this new guy's scheme. And then basically the defensive guy's going to coach the defense and the offensive guy is going to make the offensive play calling. And, rightfully so, one of these reporters asked Nick Sirianni a question. So if these guys are doing these things, what do you do? What do you do, Nick Sirianni? That is the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. What do you do? And then, Nick Sirianni tries to deflect the question. He tries to go in a different direction. At first, he starts out with saying, oh, I'm the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. And then he's just like, oh, instead of, sometimes mostly sitting in the offensive meetings, maybe I'll talk to, get in the quarterback meetings, which makes sense, which you're talking about, going into the defensive meetings. Like, why do I want Nick Sirianni, who is not a defensive mind, going into the defensive meetings, which is absurdly stupid, and basically just spewing a bunch of all this bullshit that he's just trying to make an answer, and Nick Sirianni was talking out of his ass the entire time. you can definitely tell him coming into this press conference. Of course, Howie Roseman, Jeffrey Lurie, they had something set up. They were something pre-planned. Of course, why the meeting went so late, the pre-meeting before this press conference, and trying to perfectly plan out what these guys were going to say, and of course during certain points of the press conference, Howie Roseman had to step in saying, let me take a couple of questions, and all that stuff. Like in the middle of like everyone trying to spam Nick Sirianni with questions, Howie Roseman was trying to take a forefront of the questions just to try to get things going and progressing a little bit, and I guess try to save ass there with Nick spewing shit out of his ass. So that was definitely some of the things right there. And they keep bringing stuff about the standard and all that stuff, the same bullshit that they've been talking about basically over the past 7 weeks and 8 weeks or whatever it was. It's just stuff that we've been hearing all the time. And Nick Sirianni, Howie Roseman, they try to bring up the fact that Howie Roseman says that Nick Sirianni was the guy that brought in the idea to fire Sean, well, the basically to moat Sean Desai and Matt Patricia into the fact. And it's just like, what am I supposed to believe? What am I supposed to believe with what these guys say? Because obviously, it doesn't feel like it's a Nick Sirianni move to basically go mid-season. Hey, I want to demote this guy. Hey, I think we need to demote this guy because this is the best possible thing that we need to do for the team right now. I just don't see Nick Sirianni talking to one of his coaches and going behind one of his coaches' backs to go to the GM to say that, oh, we need to demote this guy. We need to put Matt Patricia as the main play caller right now just because I think that's what's best for the team moving forward. No, I don't see that. I still fully see that as a Howie Roseman move, fully just, putting Nick Sirianni into the face of it, and basically just summarizing this entire press conference just showcases how much of a yes man Nick Sirianni is, and really how little control that he has, and literally how much of a short leash that Nick Sirianni even has going in the next season. Just because imagine if, say, they hire Vic Fangio for the defensive coordinator role. That's a guy with former head coaching experience. Say if they go after a guy that has former head coaching experience, that's going to be the offensive coordinator. Now there's, other reports about and I know Cliff Kingsbury from that used to be the Houston head coach could possibly be in the line for the offensive coordinator. Fuck no, I don't want that guy a part of my goddamn team. But there's also talks about maybe the quarterback's coach of the Houston Texans, possibly. That would intrigue me to a little bit of an extent. But say they hire an offensive guy that also has head coaching experience. Well, you're hiring two guys that had head coaching experience, and Nick Sirianni's lease is very short. Oh, there's your replacements right there for Nick Sirianni. It just feels like at this point, with the whole, firing Sean Desai, firing Brian Johnson stuff, it kind of just really does feel like that Nick Sirianni really didn't have a choice in all this matter. Honestly, you could say that he went up to Howie Roseman, and Howie Roseman told him, hey, if you don't want to get fired, you got to fire these guys. And if you don't want to fire these guys, you're going out the door with the rest of them. So that's basically what it feels like right now. And there's just this whole culture thing with the front office, and for the second time basically in a span of not even that long, just going back to the Doug Peterson era and how the way that ended, with just all the turmoil in the front office with the coaching staff and all that stuff, how badly that regime ended, to going into now how everything miraculously fixed itself, and now we're back in the same song and dance routine with just turmoil and everything just falling apart again. And I just don't know how they fix it. And yes, say you hire these new offensive coordinator, you hire this new defensive coordinator, whether it's Vic Fangio. And yes, speaking of Vic Fangio, I'm tired of the Vic Fangio scheme. You've been doing that for the past so many years. I think you just need a different look on the defensive side of the ball. And yes, it's definitely better to have a guy, well, Vic Fangio, the guy that, created the scheme and all that stuff, instead of disciples and people that learned under the Vic Fangio pedigree and all that stuff. It definitely does sound better to have the main guy as the face of your defense, because yes, the Dolphins defense was definitely very good last season, especially getting to the quarterback. They were like a top 5 team in terms of getting to the quarterback. So yeah, your defense on a preparedness level and understanding, the scheme and all that stuff, your defense definitely would be in a lot better position with under Vic Fangio. I just think that just getting a whole new system, but that's not the way that, Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie are going to pull the strings. That's not the way it's going to work. It's basically their way or the highway. We want this specific scheme for our team, and that's what we're going to go get. That's basically it. And they keep talking about like, oh, this is the Philadelphia Eagles offense. Like, this isn't my offense. This is the Eagles offense. We're going to do what the Eagles defense is, like, not this specific guy's defense. So that just really just shows me that the front office just basically does the entire way there. It feels like there's just so much crap being spewed throughout this entire thing. It's ridiculous. It really is. Like I said, this entire press conference literally just showcases you about how much of a yes man Nick Sirianni is. Like, I have my thoughts in here, a bunch of notes here on my iPhone right here, just going through the thing. Like, looking to bring in new, fresh ideas for the offense, putting players in positions to succeed. Nick Sirianni even mentioned how stale the offense was getting, and that's why he wanted to get a new guy into the room to bring his own type of ideas to where he can mesh what works best from Nick Sirianni's system and mesh it with the new ideas that this new person's going to be bringing in. So that's going to be interesting. Yeah, right person for the offense. Nick will sit in more on the defensive meetings. It didn't sound like Nick Sirianni was confident at all with what he was talking about. It just looked like he was told what to say, and sometimes he rambled on, he rambled on, he rambled on, and he rambled on. And when you get to those certain points where Howie Roseman has to step in and talk, it's just like, does Nick Sirianni even have a mind of his own? Is he just that much of a yes man to where he's probably not even respected in the coaching room? He's not respected among the players. Like, seriously, if you're that bad of a yes man, like, how does that reflect on the rest of the team? It basically just showcases you that you're not the main honcho here. Everyone's answering to Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie, and those are the guys that are running the show. And yes, basically that has been that case for a while now, basically since, the Chip Kelly era when that ended. And, Howie Roseman was put into the janitor's closet, and then he came back with a fresh new set of eyes and everything like that back into the full-fledged GM room with him, under power and everything like that. And yes, it did lead you to a Super Bowl championship, which we all cherish and everything like that. But then all the turmoil that went down with Doug Peterson, at least for the Doug Peterson standpoint, he went down fighting for the people that he believed in his coaching staff, with Press Taylor and all that stuff. Granted that maybe those coordinators still definitely weren't the best hires and the best ideas there, but at least you can have some respect in the fact that you go down fighting for your people. Well, Nick Sirianni really isn't doing that. Nick Sirianni really isn't in a position to do that because honestly, they're probably not even his hires. Like, is Nick Sirianni really hiring these people? And, he just goes through this whole spiel of having to reprove himself. How, when he goes into the meeting with Jeffrey Lurie, like, is he worried about his job being on the line? Like, does he have to, like, prove himself again to the ownership as to why he should be able to keep his job? And you just go through this whole spiel about reproving. Like, this entire team has to reprove themselves next year. I gotta reprove myself. Dude, dude, have some balls, man. Have some balls. Like, feel like you believe in yourself. If you're talking about going into a meeting with the goddamn owner of the team and you're talking about, I have to prove myself again, don't you want to believe in yourself? Don't you want to go into that meeting saying, like, I'm confident in myself, I'm confident in my abilities, I'm confident in my schemes, I'm confident in the way that I run things, that I can run this back next year and get everything in the way that it is supposed to be? Not talking about how I have to reprove myself, how this team has to reprove themselves. No, 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 no. And then they talk about the whole linebacking situation, how they believe in some of the guys that are in that linebacking position, like Kobe Dean and all that stuff, especially when they're talking about bringing in a new defensive coordinator. Oh, God. Oh, God, I am fully not prepared to. Oh, actually, I am fully prepared for the disaster that is most likely going to be this offseason and termination of the the linebacking room. Oh, that's going to be fun. That's going to be really fun. Oh God, oh God, oh joy. Oh joy, oh joy, oh joy, oh joy, oh joy. It is going to be very funny. It is going to be very funny if that's the case, that they really just don't address that entire situation and they try to run it back with Nakobe Dean as the main linebacker. Oh God. Oh God. What else? What else is all here? Oh man. Howie Roseman going into, like, he tried to go through a whole thing of like praising Nick Sirianni. Like, he was asked a question about like, why are you confident? Like, why would you, like, what is the main reason why you want to bring back Sirianni and all that stuff? Talking about making the playoffs 3 straight years and all that stuff and blah 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 blah. They keep talking about the culture and all that stuff and how everything's the standard. Like, basically, it's like I said, not much happened in this press conference. It was all the same spiel bullshit, and it just looks worse than what it is. Like, seriously, we've been so down bad with this organization on how bad the collapse was, and it was just completely ridiculous. And anything this team says right now, like, no one's gonna buy, no one's gonna believe in it, and everything they say looks 20 billion times worse in our eyes just because of how everything ended. And yeah, this press conference just was more of that. It was just completely more of that. Like, I can guarantee you that barely, I would say 95% of this fan base does not believe in his organization right now. I could tell you that. 95.9%, possibly. I just, and I feel like I've said this, like, a couple of, you know, streams ago in terms of this team. Yes, if they hire new coordinators and those new coordinators happen to fix everything that's possibly here, they fix the offense, they fix the defense, and they turn this team back into what they were during the Super Bowl run, and they end up getting the ultimate goal, which is winning that Lombardi trophy, then at the end of the day you don't care. But I just don't think that with the way that you're operating this franchise, I just don't think that you can find sustained success. I just don't see that. I don't see that with the way that Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie are running things. Because if you're looking at, a bunch of the teams that are around the league right now, especially the teams that are still in the playoffs right now in that final four. Maybe the wild card you could say is the Detroit Lions, but look at, the Baltimore Ravens. They had horror, bro. They had, with the 49ers, they have, Kyle Shanahan with the 49ers, well, not the 49ers, the Chiefs. They've had Andy Reid. Like, a lot of these teams have had head coaches that have been there for a long, 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 long time. And yeah, Nick Sirianni has been here for a little bit at this point. This is going to be his fourth season going into next year. But it just feels like when the main honcho of their teams, they look like they're the main play caller of that team. Like, is Andy Reid, the main play caller of the Chiefs? Probably most likely. Especially Kyle Shanahan, the main play caller of the 49ers and everything like that. It just feels like right now, with the way that you're going to, I just don't know how you can compete with these upper echelon teams when you're just going through so much turmoil year after year after year. And yeah, and yes, you know, there's been plenty of success with Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman for a while. And like, no, we cannot knock that. Like, there's been true success with this organization for a long time here. Like, yeah, they're a consistent playoff team. They know how to build Super Bowl contenders. But for some reason, just in the recent years, it's just when it goes bad, it just goes so bad and downhill that what the hell even happened? And I think that just comes down to what the culture is in the organization, the front office wise, from your ownership down to the general manager. And that reflects into the coaching staff, that reflects into the locker room. And how do the players even believe in that? I just don't know. I just don't know. And I'm sure there's going to be more stuff as the days go along in terms of coordinator hires. Of course, Fangio right now is the hot target right now in terms of defensive guys, basically since the press conference happened. But I know in terms of everything else here that I know the Chargers hired well, I lost my train of thought. The Chargers, yeah, the Chargers they just hired they just hired Jim Harbaugh from Michigan to be the Chargers head coach. And it does sound like the Lions offensive coordinator is going to be the next head coach of the Commanders. So I don't know what they do, man. I just don't know what they do. Who do they go after in terms of offensive guy? Do they go new route again? Do they go experienced route, old and experienced, to where he could be a head coach replacement, or is that going to be a Vic Fangio on the defensive side? Are they going to go new things on the defensive side? Are they going to stick with this goddamn Fangio scheme? I have no idea. I have no idea. I'm just so tired of talking about this team, but they just creep into the back of your mind and they find ways to make you mad every single goddamn day. It just does. It just does. So let's go to the Anytime hotline here. We do have a voicemail. You can leave anything at 215-839-9885. It's on the bottom of your screen. You can leave a text message or a voicemail for any future videos or future streams or anything like that. So let's get to Sean and what he thinks about this entire situation with following this press conference.
A lot to unpack here. So first of all, I didn't watch the press conference or listen to it. Why? Because I already know how the Eagles operate. You're going to get nothing but coach speak and a bunch of gaga, basically. It's not worth paying any attention to. Now, as far as the Fangio supposed hire goes, my thoughts are these. Look, I mean, Vic Fangio's been around a long time. He's been a defensive coordinator with a lot of teams. I don't have a problem with him personally, but I think the problem that we all have as Eagle fans is the scheme itself. The scheme itself sucks. Whether it's Vic Fangio running it or Sean Desai running it, but it goes back to what I keep saying over and over. I swear that Howie Roseman and Jeff Lurie's goal is not only to win, but to win their way and to give a middle finger to all the fans while doing it. You know, P.T. Barnum once said there's a sucker born every minute, and we as fans are suckers. Because Jeffrey Lurie and Roseman laugh when we say we want to run the ball more. We want you guys to go out and provide us legitimate linebacking play. Now, we want a more aggressive scheme harkening back to the Jim Johnson days. That ain't going to happen. So once again, the Eagles basically changed the name of the coaches, but the schemes and ideals remain the same. And most likely the results are going to remain the same as well.
I don't blame you for thinking like that one bit, Sean. I don't blame you for thinking like that one shit. I can summarize Sean's thoughts about the Eagles right here, and this is basically what is going through his mind right now. That is basically that is basically what it is at this point. Oh yeah. Like I said, I do think, you know, if you're sticking with this Fangio scheme, it's rather probably the better idea to go get the actual guy that runs the scheme himself instead of a disciple, instead of someone that has learned under him. That's probably the better idea. But like Sean said, I just do believe right now for this team, it's just stale. It's you see teams with the way, especially with the way that the linebackers play. Like you see some of these, especially the teams that are in these final, like the Ravens, the 49ers, like they're very heavy defensively on the linebacker play. Same thing with Detroit and everything like that. It's the way that the linebackers can get up in the play, how they make a difference in the game. The Eagles just don't have that. The Eagles don't have that. And even when it felt like they did have the linebackers in the previous years, they really weren't. It didn't really feel like those guys were relied on as much as the way some other teams do rely on their linebackers. And I feel like that's the way defenses in this league right now are adapting to that, where linebacker is probably one of the more important positions that you need on the defensive side of the ball. And the Eagles continue to lack that. And especially when you get into the draft purposes, I'm going to say it right here. I think Howie Roseman drafts a safety in the first round or second round before he drafts a linebacker. I would firmly put money on that Howie Roseman would do that before he drafts a linebacker in the first round. I just firmly would believe that. And I think that's where I'm going to leave you guys off there. That's what I firmly believe. Today was just nonsense from that standpoint. And yeah, I do see some of you guys in here talking about the Carter Hart situation. We'll get into that another time. It's not the right time to talk about right now, especially since we're talking about Eagles. But especially, it's just not the right time to talk about until we get full answers on that situation. But yeah, like I said, that's where I'm going to leave you guys off of today. Don't forget to leave a comment in the comment section down below. Don't forget to drop a like. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It does me a great deal of service, guys. Also, use the code TTPSPORTS, $20 off your first purchase at SeatGeek. Great deal. Don't pass it up. Thanks, guys, for joining tonight.